If there's any sound sweeter than this, then it's gotta be this. This is the Vectrex Arcade System, and it was released in 1982 by General Consumer Electronics, a Milton Bradley company. Unlike other gaming systems, it has a built-in monitor, and it features arcade-quality vector graphics. This thing is surprisingly compact too. The monitor is 9 inches, and even with the controller, it only weighs 14 pounds. Hell, even a Commodore 64 keyboard is bigger, and the Game Boy is almost as big too. Okay, so I'm lying to you. On the front, there's 2 controller ports, a reset button, an on-off and volume knob, and the front-firing speaker sounds pretty good. There's a cartridge slot on the side of it, and games fit in nice and snug. The controller features an analog joystick, which feels pretty nice, and 4 arcade-style buttons. And it's absolutely enormous compared to an Atari joystick. Okay, I lied again. One thing about the Vectrex is that the graphics are only displayed in black and white. Color is achieved using these tinted overlays that install just like this. The overlays are part of what makes this a great and unique system. Every game came with its own unique overlay, with its own graphics, its own colors, and even the button layout is on the bottom of each one to help you. These just add to the charm of playing a Vectrex, almost like you're playing a dedicated arcade game. Well, we've seen the system, so let's look at some games. Every Vectrex has a built-in game called Mindstorm. It's basically an Asteroids clone, but it's done very well. Just like in Asteroids, you control a spaceship and you fire at enemies. As the levels progress, the enemies get faster and more of them appear on screen. You can thrust and you can use hyperspace, just like in the Asteroids arcade game. So this is Spike, and this one is really reminiscent of Donkey Kong. Basically, you play the role of Spike. Your girlfriend Molly has been kidnapped by the evil Spud, and you have to climb ladders and platforms to reach the top. You have to collect bonus items along the way to pass the level. And when Spike dies, it's pretty funny what he says. This one here is an arcade classic. Basically, you're a humanoid and you explore the electromagnetic mazes full of evil robots. You need to destroy all the robots and go through all the mazes. That bouncing ball you see right there is Evil Otto, and he can kill you, but you can't kill him. So you need to be careful. The levels get harder as they progress, and there's a lot of slowdown in the game, especially in later levels, when there's a lot of robots on the screen like this. Another thing that's disappointing is you see how I just died right there. There's no speech to say "got you humanoid" in this game. Well, the arcade port is known to have speech in it, so I don't understand why the Vectrex version can't have it when Spike has it. Even the Atari 5200 port has this feature. Well, at least it makes an appearance when the game ends. Scramble is another arcade classic, and it's also considered to be the grandfather of the Gradius series of games. It's a side-scrolling 2D shooter. You fire lasers and missiles. You explore mountains, and as the game progresses, you go through some very tight tunnels. Just like in Zaxxon, you have to fire your missiles at fuel tanks to gain fuel. If you run out of fuel, you lose a life. My only complaint about this game is the constant noise of your ship in the background. But if you can look past that, it's a good game. Hey there. Well, this sure looks familiar. But instead of Pac-Man eating pellets, you're a vacuum eating money. Those crab-like things you see there are the evil bank robbers. There's a few added twists in this game. For one, you can only collect so much money before your vacuum bag gets full. That box in the center of the screen is actually the bank vault, and you need to check into it periodically to deposit your money. And instead of eating power pellets to chase your enemies with, you enter these little rooms in the four corners to supercharge your vacuum and catch the bank robbers. The difficulty increases as the levels progress. More bank robbers will appear, and they become more aggressive. Also, your vacuum bag fills up more rapidly in later levels, meaning you need to make more trips to the bank vault. Just like in Berserk, there's a lot of slowdown when there's multiple enemies on the screen, but it's still a fun game to play. Well, this is one of many space shooters on the Vectrex. But instead of a spaceship, you control a cannon in the center of the screen. You turn around, and the caverns change sizes and shapes. It's just a basic space shooting game. So this here is a standard overhead driving game, kind of like Sega Turbo. There's two options in the game. You can either race against the clock with unlimited lives, or you can choose the game where you race until you crash 5 times. The graphics are excellent in this game, but what ruins it for me personally is the controls. The steering is just way too sensitive, and instead of using the joystick to up or down shift, you use the buttons. I know that there's a way you can hack an Atari paddle controller to work on this game, but I still feel the game developers could have done a little better job with the controls. In this game, you play the role of the Hawk King. Your mission is to capture 20 creatures from Guardians. As you explore these tunnels, you can increase or decrease speed to your fancy. And after you capture a certain amount of creatures, you're supposed to find a secret tunnel into a trophy room. It looks like a good game, but my problem, it's way too hard. I can only capture a couple of creatures before I lose all my lives, and then the game ends. So this one's called Spinball. I gotta wonder if this is how Sonic Spinball got its name. Well, probably not. Well, it's a video pinball game. It's definitely a step ahead of pinball on the 2600. The sound effects are really cool. The ball does bounce around a lot, but you get 5 of them per game instead of 3. You can tilt, you can use one flipper at a time. There's lots of drop targets, lots of bumpers. Fun game. Well, I gotta move on. There's tons of other games on the Vectrex that I don't have time to review. More space shooters, sports games, clones, all kinds of games on the Vectrex. But I want to take a minute to talk about the Homebrew Cards. There's a huge homebrew following on the Vectrex, probably even bigger than the Atari homebrew movement. I want to take a minute and show you a couple of games that I got. Ronin's Games card features 2 games, Vectrex and Vaboom. Vectrex looks like a pretty good overhead driving game. It's basically a clone of Street Racer from the Atari 2600. My only complaint, the text between levels is impossible to read. Vaboom is another good game. It's basically a clone of Kaboom from the Atari 2600. But if there's a must-own homebrew card on the Vectrex, it's this one by Alex Herbert. This one really shows off what the Vectrex is capable of. Even the credit screen is stunning. So here's Protector, and whoa, it's Defender, and it looks quite amazing. Look at the arcade version. To be honest, I'm stunned. If you grew up playing Defender on the Atari like I did, the controls do take some getting used to, though you can adjust them to your liking. One nice feature is the high score save, which saves your initials even after you turn off the game. So here's Yahtzee. What does Yahtzee stand for? Well, it's yet another Space Invaders. And again, it's pretty faithful to the arcade version. So there's my review of the Vectrex. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming.